Watch this video. I'm going to show you something here that I noticed in this. Boom, stop right there. The vegetation and the leaves, and none of that are burned. Listen, I don't know how many fires some of you have built in fireplaces before, but let me say this. I have put fires in fireplaces before, and you can't put a big log. You have to have kindling or some kind of fuel, like a gas fireplace, to start the logs on fire and get them going. For a tree to start burning from the inside out, you tell me. This guy's got his hand, looks like he's got some classic cars sitting around that burned. Look at this. See that puddle of aluminum right there? Let me tell you something. Aluminum melts at 1221 degrees.
Can you use an aluminum rim as a fire pit, or will it melt? Fire's going pretty good right now, and this is probably as big as you'd want a fire to be in your backyard. So this 18-inch rim is pretty good size. This is perfect. But let's let this fire burn out, and then we'll inspect the rim in the morning to see how it made out.
I know for a truth that when I melted aluminum, you could not do it by building a fire on the outside. You had to put it in some kind of furnace and melt it. You had to have a furnace of some kind, whether it be gas or electric. I remember in high school, we had a metals class. Back then, when they used to teach those kinds of things, we had what's called a metals class, and we used to pour aluminum out of a furnace into a foundry. We would do our sand casting and then pour different things out of aluminum. But it had to be a furnace effect. Aluminum is at 1200 degrees melting. How do you reach that on the outside of a car? On the outside of a car. How much heat does it take to do that? Let me say this. To see this kind of aluminum melting, his cars and everything melted, but look at the vegetation behind him. It's not burned.
There's something very weird about this fire, weird about the way it's burning things down. As many people have noticed, it seems like the fire is selective, almost surgical. You'll see these areas where one house is burnt down next to a house that's untouched. And more strangely, in a lot of the photos, the trees surrounding the houses seem to be fine. Another thing that's strange is you may come across these photos of burnt out cars lined up along the side of the highway next to green trees that are untouched. In fact, the way the fire has attacked homes and cars and communities has been so strange that some are calling it the most selective forest fire in history. Naturally, people are wondering, how could this happen? And some people are thinking that maybe it's not an accident.
Obliterated homes. Okay, obliterated homes. Again, we got some scorch lines here, right through here. But yet nothing at all is standing. There's no granite that we can see, no granite countertops, porcelain toilets, tubs, everything, steel, metal, is consumed. This is house fire aftermath. Again, one house, one fire, firemen get there, put it out. I understand all that. But look at how much is still left intact. I mean, you have something like this, which is, I would say, completely destroyed. Okay, but you still have some shingles. You still have some things there. Excuse me. But everything not everything burned. You have brick. Um, you can see with your own eyes that this is a typical fire, or these are typical fires.
This photo shocked me more than any other. The fire started in the middle of these homes and burnt outward. The outward, in other words, none of the vegetation burned into the homes. The homes were incinerated from the inside out. Inside out. It is the most amazing photo I have ever seen in my life. While I do see some vegetation burned over here, I don't see where it crossed the road, but I see the intense heat on this photo where this burned outward, not inward. So the vegetation around it did not incinerate these. Also, the amount of heat that it would have taken to burn these houses to the ground had to come from the inside and not the outside. Some people are saying it was it was gas. Some people are saying it was these new meters that they're able to overload the meter. This didn't come from the outside on a meter. This did not come from a gas main. These houses were incinerated, I believe, by microwave. I heard about a fire. It seemed to me like it was during the Christmas season back east, and this family lost 5 of their children, and they pulled those children out in body bags. Now, I'm not trying to be gruesome here, but there's no remains of these people in these homes. Are you with me here? There's no remains.
Hey, it's Tuesday, July 31st, 2018. I'm John Knox in Los Angeles. Now, this picture has been taken off the internet. It's a suburban neighborhood believed to be near the Carr Fire, that's C-A-R-R, which is near Redding, California. Now, we're talking about fires, irregular, unpredictable, raging forces of nature, okay? Now, when the forest fire comes to a suburban development, we're going to take a look at how this particular forest fire, this force of nature, decided to burn when it got to the suburban development. Now, let's drift the camera a little bit to the left. Now, this forest fire, when it got to this suburban tract, decided that the houses were more important to burn than the trees. And we're going to drift down a little bit here, speaking of trees. Now, to the left of this group of trees or bushes, you see the shell of a burned out car. Now, the energy that it takes to blast all of the glass out of the car, to burn all the rubber tires off the car, that's pretty intense energy. So in that spot, there was an amazing amount of energy and heat being expended. And yet, the trees and the bushes off to the right of this particular car did not burn. Okay, that's strange. That's an anomaly, and that's been repeated over and over again in many of the fires. However, if we drift the camera up and to the right, we're going to find something that this irregular, unpredictable, raging force of nature decided to do. The left of this property is decimated. The right of the property, probably about a third of the house, looks like what happens to a decoration on the top of a wedding cake when it's cut. So this irregular, unpredictable, raging force of nature decided to do this to this house. Pretty amazing fires. Okay, so let's pull out a little bit and take a look at all of the lots that are in this picture. The thing that you're going to notice is the decimation, the obliteration is consistent. Every house is built differently. It has different pieces of furniture and has different things inside it. They all should burn very differently, but what you see here is a replicated pattern of absolute decimation. So to me, this says something that's repeatable and it's accurate and persistent. That's a system. This is not the mark of a force of nature, okay? So on Tuesday, July 31st, 2018, the common sense of what I'm showing you just in this one picture basically says whatever the explanation that we've had so far from the officials about what causes these fires, is basically a lie.
Hey, what's going on, you guys? All right, so what you're looking at here is the town of Paradise. Unbelievable footage is what I'm looking at. This is an interactive map. Can you see what I'm seeing right here? All the structures are burned down with the trees surrounding all the structures in Paradise. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is the Paradise, the town of Paradise, Butte County, interactive map. You can go to it on their website. It is all of, they're saying that this was a forest fire, yet all these structures are surrounded by green trees everywhere. I mean, everywhere. Yet all the structures are burnt down and incinerated. Everything. Yet all these trees are just still standing up. How did the fire weasel its way into these nooks and crannies? This is unbelievable. I mean, this is shocking evidence. This is from A Plain Truth. I'm going to play you the footage that A Plain Truth did. This is shocking. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I saw it. So here's A Plain Truth.
Plain Truth. Welcome, Awakening Truthers. Just what sent to me, it's really wonderful how many people are just sharing and sharing evidence and sharing facts for these investigations into these crimes, this genocide being committed against people, and just thousands and thousands of people are being torched out of their homes with directed energy weapons. So this is a site from Butte County recovers.org. So I guess it was just created. You can go down here and click on the 360 images, and you can scroll in and scroll out to see all the images, but I want to show you this one. Let me show you how the images go. So there's Paradise right there, and then in a minute all the images of where they have all the fires. You can click on them. So check this out. It's right next to Toney, of all places. So I just clicked on one of the images, and this was the first image I clicked on. Check this out. So this is interactive, where you can move it around. And you can scroll in and take a look at this as we scroll in here, folks. I mean, give me a freaking break. This was a forest fire? This was a forest fire? This was a forest fire? No, this was genocide. They torched these people in their homes and killed them. There's still over 1,200 people missing, and you're going to blow smoke up my ass and tell me this was a forest fire? Look at this, folks. The trees are there. Anybody can cultivate their common sense and see this. Anybody. Now, what captain, fire captain of anybody with any qualifications, any master's degree in fire forensic is going to tell you that this is a forest fire? I'm not apologizing for being angry, because they are killing us. They are out to take our lives of us and our children. There's so many missing, and no one is really speaking out except for the Awakening Truthers. That's you, and that's me. Look at this, folks. How did a forest fire come in and leave the trees but char the homes down to the ground? An iron basin bathtub, over 2,500, 3,000 degrees is needed to melt it. These things were charred to the ground, folks. They torched them out. Paradise. This is why I'm doing this series on Paradise. They're sending you a message. Unfrickin' believable. But believe it, folks. They are coming after us all, and if we don't speak out now, it's going to be too late. This is the time of the Awakening Truther. It is not oh, wait, there's a tree burned. Wait, is that a tree? Did we see a tree that actually was burned in this picture? Let's zoom in. Is that a tree burned? Oh, I'm sorry. That's just fall. Never mind. Unbelievable, folks. I'm going to leave this in the show notes. Please share this with all.
All right, so this is the interactive pictures that you can go through in the town of Paradise and look at all the fire damage. They're claiming that this was a forest fire, yet all the trees surrounding everything are still standing and have not been burnt. Yet all the buildings surrounding, all the buildings that are intertwined with these trees are burnt down and incinerated. Yet you're seeing all the trees still standing? This doesn't make any sense. I don't understand how firemen and firewomen are not pointing this evidence out. Like, there's something going on.
Let me tell you what we're seeing here. This is a guardrail on a road, and the whole thing has fallen down. Now, he shows other guardrails here that are even more messed up because they're bent and warped and stuff. But one thing that's consistent is these guardrails have all fallen down. Why? Because the parts that are holding these guardrails together, let me just show you how it's constructed. This square holding the guardrail to its post was consumed entirely by fire. You guys, there's a huge problem with this. As I just pointed out, right here, in the typical rolling forest fire, everything smaller than a pinky finger was consumed, but everything bigger than a pinky finger was not consumed. Notice, anything thicker than your pinky finger did not have time to burn totally. And yet, right here, we see that this thing, which is at least 4 by 4 by 10, this entire piece of wood was consumed. Now, there's very strange things happening here. Not only is this a piece of material of wood that is dense and huge, should require a tremendous amount of exposure to fire and a long period of time to burn. Not only that, you guys, but it's sandwiched between a pole and metal here. So the piece that is the least exposed to oxygen, consumed with the greatest destruction, okay? Whereas the twigs behind it, which are a fraction of the density of this wood, these pieces that were exposed to full oxygen didn't get consumed at all. So here's the anomaly, you guys. These pieces, which are dozens of times thicker than these twigs, which were exposed to half the oxygen as these, burned more rapidly and more completely than the things that were of far less denser and full exposure to oxygen. This is the problem. So what is the one distinctive variable? And it's not just these pylons, the bulk of wood in these pylons here. It's also, you guys, the 4 by 4 by 6 or 8 or 10, or I don't know how high these posts are. It's the entire post that held up the sign, except for this little chunk here. That little piece of wood there, that's the only part that didn't burn. Everything else burned entirely and completely. How did that happen? I want you to look. There's a twig here that can't be any fatter than a pencil. It did not burn. It had full exposure to oxygen, and yet the 4 by 4s that were holding up this 10-foot sign, gone. There's one thing that is in these 4 by 4 by 10 poles, or posts, wooden posts. There's one thing that distinguishes them from these twigs. One thing. And this is it, you guys, right here. This is the one thing that distinguishes the wood that was completely consumed, the most dense wood that was completely consumed, and the tiny little twigs that weren't even hardly touched at all. The fact that those blocks of wood had a metal conductor shot right through them. That's the problem. That's the problem, is that these guardrails, you guys, are nothing but electromagnetic conductors. And the one thing that was consistent about every piece of wood that was thoroughly consumed, the most dense, least oxygen exposed chunks of wood that burned to facilitate this from falling off its base, was the fact that every single one of those pieces of wood had electromagnetic conductors in them. That's what's so shocking here. Okay, so look for that. Look for that. The wood that has the electromagnetic conductor going through it, that's the wood that burns the most thoroughly.
We've got now at least 3 separate cell phone smart cameras identifying blue lasers on video, 1 from a helicopter and 2 from handheld cameras, as you can see right here. This is proof positive. We're going to take this to the fire departments. We're meeting with fire people now. They know something was wrong and they've seen the videos.
Lasers sound like the stuff of science fiction, right? Sound completely unbelievable. How could our military possibly be using those in future warfare? Guess what? We've just had a recent breakthrough, more great test results that are making lasers a reality. So it's called Athena. Lockheed Martin makes it, and they've been doing a lot of the pioneering in this laser field. Now, what's really exciting about it is that it's so hard to harness that much power and make it compact enough that it's actually going to make practical sense downrange. And they've proven that they can do that. Recently, they tested it against 5 moving drones, so realistic drones that they might go up against with, enemy forces might send against us, for example, or terrorists might send against us. And it successfully shot down all 5 of the drones. This is huge news because it means that in a realistic, practical setting, it's looking very promising. So it could be ready to field quite soon. So when you see the movies or you look at comic books or television shows, when you see laser weapons, they tend to be a color, right? Red or green or something like that. Real lasers, one of the key advantages that they provide is that they are invisible. You actually can't see them. You just see this damage suddenly starting to blow something up. So if we take a look now at what the Athena did to a truck. So we're looking at a truck engine, and the Athena within seconds was able to beam right in there, heat the whole thing up, and burn through the engine of this vehicle. So if you can imagine if you were in that vehicle, all of a sudden, this hole would start appearing in your engine, and the whole thing would just disappear. That's what these lasers do. Now, there's some other key advantages that we should mention. Let me give you 3 of them. 1, unlimited ammo. As long as we have power, we have an unlimited magazine. And downrange, of course, having unlimited ammo can be a huge advantage. Second, it's silent. You don't give the enemy any advance warning that it's coming. And then the third one I wanted to touch on is that it travels at the speed of light. So not only are we delivering powerful, decisive effects, lethality, we're also doing it so rapidly they don't know what hit them. So if you could circle back to that example of being in the car again, that would happen so instantaneously, within seconds, you truly would have no idea what was happening. It would just suddenly start disintegrating, right? So what can we use these against? So we talked about the vehicle a bit. We talked about how Athena has just proven itself against drones. But in the real world application, our forces could use it against the drones. We could use it against aircraft. We could use it against vehicles on the ground, like we mentioned. We could also use it against fast attack boats. And in fact, Athena's sibling, Adam, a couple years ago proved that it could eliminate these fast attack boats. So if you imagine boats start trying to swarm one of our ships, not a problem for this laser. Burns right through the hull. As you can see right there, it's burning right through the hull. I'm incredibly excited about this news, this great news about the successful testing of Athena, because it means that we'll be putting these powerful weapons soon. We could put them in the hands of our warfighters and give them even more powerful weaponry to keep themselves safe and also to deliver the effects that we need. They can be used, laser weapons can be used offensively and of course defensively too, to help protect our homeland. Think of our airports that might be under threat from enemy drones. They could be used to protect we can use them statically and used to protect our airports. They could be used to protect our power grid, our nuclear plants. So there's lots of different exciting applications for this technology. It is no longer science fiction, but science fact.
Oh my God, please God, please God. Oh my God. Oh my God, please keep the horses safe, please God, please. Tunnel. Oh my God. 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 Please, God, please. Oh my God. Oh my God, please let me out of here. Please, God. Please, God, please let me out of here. Please, God. Please. Oh my God. 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 What am I doing? Oh my God. Oh my God, please. Please help me. Please help me. Please, God. Please let me out.